Hello all! Welcome back to the Knowledge Tower, where we investigate the science behind the Bionicle legend. As Bionicle fans, we have always been lucky to have such intricate supplemental material to go alongside the story, with the detailed maps of the various locations in the Bionicle universe being some of my personal favourites. These maps have proven extremely valuable from the perspective of this channel too, with their information being key to several prior investigations. Unfortunately, not all of the maps were created equal. The map of Voya Nui, while still just as visually stunning as the previous maps of Mata Nui and Metra Nui, lacks a key feature that those had: a scale. Both previous maps give us figures for the length and width of their islands, meaning that we have always known the scale of those lands. But for whatever reason, this was just not included in the map of Voya Nui. In this investigation, I plan to change that. And because it wouldn't be a Knowledge Tower video without it, I plan to use that new information to see what other interesting features of this floating island that knowledge will reveal. But where do we start? The best way to find the unknown size of an object is to find something that does have a known size and compare the two. Unfortunately, the standard map of the island does not show anything with a known scale, and none of the other official images from the 2006 storyline show Voya Nui alongside something with a known size either. Luckily for us, however, Christian Faber's blog came to our rescue. This image, released on the Faber files, shows a total overview of all the locations in the 2001 to 2008 story years, and was the only image my research turned up with Voya Nui in the same picture as other islands. What's even better about this image though is that it includes two islands with known sizes, Mata Nui and Metra Nui. This means that by double checking the sizes of the two against one another, we can be sure that this image is to scale with the canon numbers and can therefore give us an accurate figure for Voya Nui. In the image, Mata Nui is 339 pixels in length. With its canon length of 489.09 kilometers, this makes each pixel around 1.44 kilometers. Metra Nui in this image is 45 pixels long, which, multiplied by 1.44, gives us a length of 64.8 kilometers. This is a little smaller than its canon length of 65.21 kilometers. However, I think a variation of only 410 meters is more than acceptable enough given the scale of the image. We can therefore conclude that as far as the islands go in this image, they are all to scale with each other. One thing to note for the future, however, is that while the islands appear to be in scale, the Great Spirit robot isn't. The island of Mata Nui extends far further down the body of the GSR than it does in other images, with the Kumu islets reaching as far down as the GSR's chest, while in other artworks they don't even extend past its chin. So, while I'm comfortable with the islands being to scale with each other in this image, any future use of it in other investigations will have to account for the GSR not being to scale in comparison. But that's a consideration for another time. For now, let's move on. Going back to the islands in the image, one thing is already abundantly clear. Voya Nui is absolutely tiny, smaller even than the city of Metra Nui. But to know exactly how much smaller, we once again need to break out the pixel measurements. Counting them up one by one, we get a length of 16 pixels for Voya Nui, with a width of 9 pixels. Multiplying each by our pixel size of 1.44 kilometers, that gives our final measurements for Voya Nui: 23.04 kilometers long and 12.96 kilometers wide. For context, that's slightly longer than the island of Manhattan in New York City, which comes in at 21.6 kilometers long. Though it should be said that Voya Nui is far wider than Manhattan, being around 3.5 times wider than Manhattan's width of 3.7 kilometers. Moving those figures onto our standard map of Voya Nui from earlier, and recounting the pixels at this scale, we can also determine that this standard map is at a resolution of 5.77 meters per pixel, meaning that any features that are smaller than 5.77 meters in length are too small to see at this scale. Now, we could have ended it there. After all, the other maps only go into detail of the length and width of their islands, which we can now add to Voya Nui's. Not only that, but we have also determined the resolution of the standard map of Voya Nui as a bonus. But Voya Nui is a unique case in the fact that it is a floating island, so not only does it have a length and a width, but it also has a very clearly defined depth, as shown in this image. What do our pixel measurements say about that? Measuring the island's length once again in this new image, we get a figure of 926 pixels. Dividing that by our true length measure of 23.04 kilometers, we get a pixel scale for this image of around 24.88 meters per pixel. Measuring the depth of the underwater section of the island is difficult given the angle of this image, as it's not directly side on. However, measuring from where the midpoint of the island meets the waterline here down to the bottom of the underwater section here should help us reduce any error margins. Counting the pixels again, that comes out at 659 pixels, or, converting to kilometers, 16.4 kilometers deep. Putting that into context once again, the deepest point in the Earth's oceans is the Challenger Deep at only 11 kilometers, meaning that the rock that makes up Voya Nui extends deeper into the endless ocean than even the deepest point it is possible to reach in Earth's oceans. Given that the chord doesn't even start until it is this deep, and therefore extends even further than this into the abyss, we can conclude that Aquamagna's oceans are incredibly deep indeed. But just how deep will have to wait for its own dedicated investigation. For now, we have one more figure we can work out for Voya Nui. When you are wanting to know the true size of a place, the land area it occupies is often a far more useful figure than just its length and width measurements, and therefore it is this measure that is most often used when comparing sizes of things like islands, countries, or continents. Specifically, this figure counts the area of a place as if it were a flat expanse constrained within its borders, so as not to make mountainous regions seem far larger than similarly sized flat ones, given all that extra area those peaks and valleys would cause if counted. We already know the area of 1 pixel on the map of Voya Nui, as we have already established that each pixel is 5.77 meters in length, giving them an area of 33.29 square meters per pixel. If we were to separate out the pixels that make up the island from those that make up the surrounding sea, we could count these and add them all up to get an area for the island as a whole. Luckily for me, a shortcut can be taken to do this, rather than having to count up every pixel manually. Another Faber Files image of Voya Nui shows it in silhouette, which, when correctly overlaid on top of our previous image, gives every pixel that makes up the island a single black coloration. Then, after using an image editor program to count the number of black pixels in the image automatically, we come to the final pixel count of 1,388,695 pixels. Multiplying this by our pixel area of 33.29 meters squared, and we get a final area measure for Voya Nui of 46.23 square kilometers, or around the size of Manila, the capital city of the Philippines. By using the exact same method for the maps of Mata Nui and Metru Nui, we can see that Mata Nui is around 44,102 square kilometers, while Metru Nui is 911.42 square kilometers. This makes Voya Nui 19 times smaller than Metru Nui, which in turn is 48 times smaller than Mata Nui. Or, to put it another way, if Voya Nui is around the size of Manila, then Metru Nui is a little bit larger than the city of Dallas in the United States, while Mata Nui is a little bit larger than the country of Denmark, which makes sense when you remember Denmark is both the home of Lego and one of the original inspirations for the island in the first place. So, there we are. 18 years after we first saw the map of the island of Voya Nui, we finally know its scale, and we know a little bit more about the scales of Mata Nui and Metru Nui as a bonus. I hope you all enjoyed this little geographic journey, and I will see you all again soon for another Bionicle Science investigation here at the Knowledge Tower.